I think my biggest concerns before coming to India was the stories I had heard about kind of the mass amounts of people here. Things like that there's so many people that they shove you when you're in line for something, and various different things like that. And I was just kind of nervous about the mass amount of people here. When I came, it kind of turned out to be okay. I just got used to that kind of mentality of everyone's around all the time, and I got used to it. So
the thing I was worried about was the cleanliness and the food and getting sick. And it's been great. The food's been amazing. The people have been wonderful. The team's kind of brought me through my anxiety about the whole thing. And I think I've really confronted a lot of fears I had about that, and it's been a great experience.
I loved all the food. It took a little while to get used to eating with my hands, but once I got that down, and also keeping the left hand off the table, it was super great. I just kind of had no reservations, let myself eat anything and everything, and it was all really, really excellent and a super great experience.
Eating meals in India is a different experience. You eat with your right hand. You definitely don't want to eat with your left. You want to like sit on your left hand. But at first it was very awkward to kind of mash all the food together and eat with your right hand and everything. But after, 4 days in Shimoga, I was wheeling and dealing. But then when we got to Goa, I start eating with my hands in the restaurant, and our Rotarian host said, "Wow, you eat more Indian than I do. Pick up a fork." So it was pretty interesting.
Eating meals in India was very different. They start you out with one just large silver plate, and then a piece of roti is put on it, or a piece of naan, and then various little different scoops of curry or other vegetarian dishes, and you kind of mix it all together and you eat with your hands, which was kind of hard for me to get over, and especially you have to eat with your right hand, and I'm a lefty, so that was a little difficult. I really had to put my hand below my seat.
The food in India is awesome, and what I love about it is that for every meal, instead of one big meal, you'll get little appetizers of little things, so you can try a whole bunch of stuff. Eating with my hands was very difficult at first. I definitely didn't really have the skill. It's kind of like using chopsticks for the first time. But after a few days, you start to pick it up, and I got a little bit more proficient at it.
We'd had the experience with our hands a little bit already from Bangalore, but they sort of let me do it and sort of watched me struggle with it in a way. And then they're like, "Can you get her a fork?" She doesn't need to do that anymore. Make sure she has a fork.
I think I drank all the coconuts they have here. It was like everywhere we went, they would just hand us a new coconut. No bottled water, only pure coconut water.
Well, I know in one day alone I drank 4 coconuts. It was very generous and sweet. At every school we visited, they had a coconut for us to kind of give us a little refresher. And so I really felt like I had to drink all of those coconuts. So I think by the end of the trip, I had maybe about 8.
We'd had quite a long day of traveling and kind of a crazy train ride, so it was a little overwhelming to have all these people there, but at the same time, really amazing to be very warmly greeted and welcomed and have them be so excited to have us there.
I loved being greeted by Rotarians. It was just instantly having a community and trusted people that you could rely on. From the first hour of being on the ground, being in Bangalore and not having anyone at first, and then all of a sudden we were greeted by these great Rotarians and shown things all over Bangalore that most tourists probably never see. In Shimoga, we were fully immersed in the culture there.
In terms of being greeted by Rotarians instead of finding our own way, I would say it was a combination of being much more safe, but conversely also much more authentic. So we felt much more safe. They were Rotarians, they were people that we trusted, people that we knew wouldn't harm us and would try to make us as comfortable as possible. However, at the same time, it was also a very authentic experience. It was not at all like staying at the Ramada Inn or the Hilton. It was very much an authentic experience, staying with an Indian family, eating Indian food, and practicing Indian traditions.
I loved being greeted by Rotarians at the train station. I mean, our train was late. They stayed up and they waited for us, and they almost had like a parade for us when we got there, giving us roses when we got off the train. And it was just so comforting, because a lot of times when you get into a city that late at night, I think it was like 11 or so, you know, sometimes it's difficult to find a cab and it's difficult to figure out where you're going. And so it was really comforting to have them there to greet us.
I just couldn't believe the amount of people and the enthusiasm and the passion for this program here in India, and how much it's actually helping people and helping these children.
It's just amazing how selfless they were to be there all day. Like, some of the booths I visited had like 200 some kids, or maybe even more, that they had to vaccinate, and they were there for the whole day. You know, nothing in it for them except maybe a free lunch, but they were just very generous and very selfless.
It felt incredible to be a part of National Immunization Day. And even though there were millions and hundreds of millions of children who got immunized, and I probably only touched a small portion of it, it was amazing to see the impact that each person had coming together for a common purpose.
I think the coordination and how many kids do participate, I think that the whole way in which they structured the day was amazing to me.
When you can see the individual people, the kids themselves that are there, and they need you know, the immunizations, or they need funding or something for their schools, it really takes that global, like, I can't really do anything perspective away and shrinks it down to I am doing something for these people. And that really feels great.
I see this gigantic Indian man come up at Happy Home, and I'm like, man, this guy could be an MMA fighter or, you know, a linebacker for the NFL.
Roshan just came bouncing right out of his doorway, and he was just full of life and energy.
He was this really big man that looked very strong, but was so sort of soft and cuddly and so excited about his family.
Pulling up to Happy Home, you walk in, and Roshan and his mother Irene greeted us right away with big, like, open arms and welcoming smiles. Irene even gave me a couple of kisses on the cheek. And Roshan, definitely, he spoke perfect English, so it was really easy to communicate with him.
Roshan and his wife Rose and his mother have just started something just really incredible in Shimoga. And when I went there and I saw what they were doing with the kids, and they were doing this all on their own with their own cash, repairing buildings and working with equipment that wasn't up to par with the amount of kids that they had.
It was exciting to see Happy Home. I think before we arrived, I felt very apprehensive. I get very emotional around mentally challenged and physically disabled children, so I wasn't quite sure how I would react when I actually arrived at Happy Home. However, when I got there, it was a great experience. The children are so lively, they are so happy. It really is a happy home. So I felt completely at ease once I met Roshan and just saw how well taken care of the children were and how happy they all were.
Roshan was like a breath of fresh air. He was so happy and excited, and even though he was dealing with some of the saddest things I think that you will ever see in your life, he was so optimistic, and you could, you know, his excitement was infectious. You just saw how committed he was to these kids and what he was trying to do with them in terms of rehabilitating them or educating them or just getting them to a place where they could have a healthy and fulfilled life. It was contagious, and he was an amazing human.
I think it was a bit of a disaster, especially at first. We, you know, it was water-soluble paint. We didn't really understand the materials we were working with, and so at first we were sort of dripping it everywhere and felt like maybe not doing the most helpful things. But once Roshan came over and showed us, oh, here's how we do it, here's what we're looking for, I think we kind of got it together. But for the most part, I'm not sure it's the act of like painting a wall or something that makes the most difference, but building relationships with people like Roshan and seeing what he's doing, understanding the kids and really connecting with them.
I think it was more about the relationships. I think it was more of an action in which we could show that we were willing to get our hands dirty, that we didn't feel superior to it, that we really wanted to immerse ourselves in what they were trying to do, if only just by a little hands-on work.
You know, other people have a different opinion about how we did painting the hall. I think we actually did kind of a great job. It turned out to be this beautiful green color, and I had a lot of fun painting the hall.
We did a terrible job painting the hallway, but it was still it was still wonderful. But you know, it's like we've never used this type of chalky substance. It's not really paint, but it was more the experience of working with them. And by the end, it looked really good. But at first, we were getting it all over ourselves. We were dripping it all over the walls.
I think it was definitely more about building relationships. I kind of feel like they're just gonna, because they paint that wall once every 3 months, so I'm sure they'll be glad to paint over our work.
I think that our work about painting the hallway was not only about building relationships, but it was also about gaining empathy for what people do in India. It was very fun to see our entire group come in and say, yes, we want to make a difference, we want to do physical things, we want to paint the wall. And ultimately, it took us 2 hours longer than we had expected, and the quality was, you know, it was definitely questionable. But I think what we certainly gained out of that experience is we learned what it's like to do physical work in India, what it's like to toil in the heat, and what it's like, just a small glimpse into what it's like to run an orphanage. So I think that the perspective that we gained is more of what that project was about.
Rotary's really taught me that with enough passion and willpower, we can transform anything. And that's something that I just see, this drive in these young children that we've seen, and they all want to be engineers, doctors, policemen. They want to help their community, and the Rotarians here have undertaken such large projects that are fundamentally changing their towns and cities and helping themselves, and it just has empowered me and challenged me to do the same in my community and in other communities around the world.
I think Rotary is amazing. Just bringing all these people together, their energy and efforts and resources, it's totally incredible to see with so little money and so little time what they've been able to do for these communities, for the schools.
I've always known, Rotary from the things we read or see or talk to other Rotarians about. I had some idea of what Rotary can do, but this really, I think, solidified for me that it doesn't take a whole lot, and they're really doing projects here that are impacting a lot of people.
So I've been in Rotary for over a year now, and I had seen what Rotary can do, but coming to India actually showed me the difference Rotary can make. Seeing all of the different matching grants projects that happened in Shimoga alone, and then let alone when we went to Goa, seeing what the money that we raised funds for is helping really showed me that Rotary does make a huge positive difference in the world, and everyone's on the same page in Rotary.
Well, from being from the San Diego Coastal Rotary Club, also a New Gen Club, I'm very excited about the partnerships that I've made and all of the amazing friendships with everyone in Portland, the Portland New Generations Club. So I'm excited to continue these friendships and hopefully work on some projects together to make an impact both here in India and elsewhere around the world.
I'm actually moving to San Francisco, and I'm so excited about what Portland New Generations has done and the impact that they're having on the world and the enthusiasm that they're bringing to Rotary and the new generations, that I'd like to help start the San Francisco New Generations Club. There's a group that's starting down there that's starting to form. They haven't done an international service project yet, so I'd potentially like to get involved with their group and see if we can get the same momentum and the same achievements that Portland New Generations has achieved.